Okay, we're back this week with our new topic. This week we're going to talk about tricks that insurance companies pull to take advantage of normal people. And before we get rolling, I want to let everybody know that they should subscribe to our channel, and then they'll find out that we're going to do a video like this just about every week, and we're going to do it on topics that we think are interesting, but we're also going to do it on topics that you guys tell us you want to hear about. So let's talk about this. So we've got Andrea and Andy, of course. You know, insurance companies can be a little bit shady, a little bit tricky. Give us an example of sort of a classic insurance company trick that they do after somebody, say, has been in an accident.
I would say the number one thing we see is asking someone to settle right after a crash occurs before their treatment is complete. So they may say, well, we'll give you $10,000 today.
Although they usually don't offer $10,000 today.
Or just an example.
Yeah.
But you may need, months and months of treatment to get back to where you were before the crash. And then once you accept that money, you're done.
Right. They want you to sign a release, essentially, releasing them forevermore. And those are nearly impossible most of the time to get around. And, you see that all the time. And clients sometimes will say, well, why does it take so long? The insurance company, they're offering me money today. Why are you telling me it's going to take 6, 8, 10 months to get this resolved? And I often have to explain to people, listen, you're absolutely right. You want this settled tomorrow or next week? We can do that. You can do that alone. They're going to offer you pennies on the dollar. But if time is all you care about, go ahead. You can get $100 for a case that's worth $50,000.
Yeah, and I really see, because right after a crash, someone may think they're okay.
Yeah,
so they
that to me is
think,
the big issue.
Yeah, so they may be like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'll just put this behind me. And then, a week or two later, when their back or their neck or something else could be seriously wrong that you just don't know about right away, you've already signed something.
Well, that's why these cases can take some time, because we really always wait until our clients are completely finished treating and released from their doctor, so we know the extent of their injuries. We know there's nothing lurking.
I think what happens is that they know that when people are in a car accident, even when they're hurt, for some reason, people's first concern is always about getting their car fixed or getting into a new car, because for people, their car is their livelihood. It's how they go to work. It's how they drive their family around. And they will almost sort of put aside concerns about their neck or their back or other injuries they have, and they're totally just listening to the insurance company, whatever it's going to take to get my car fixed fast. And so during that process, the insurance company, they do a lot of things that are kind of shady. For one, they always want to get a recorded statement. I would tell people, never give them a recorded statement, because believe me, that recorded statement, it's really not for your benefit. That's not because they just want to get some facts down from you and then decide if they're going to pay. There's a police report already that should cover that. They're taking the recorded statement because they're hoping that you're going to talk to them without the benefit of a lawyer, that you're going to say something that might get them off the hook for liability for the accident completely, and they're always going to start throwing in questions about your health. They're going to know if you're hurting right now, which a lot of times you're not hurting the day after an accident. And so now they have you on recording saying, no, I feel okay, when in reality 3 days later is where the pain may kick in, and now there's something on record that where you said, well, I was fine. Mm-hmm. And they capitalize on that. And sometimes, I know you're going to go into this a little bit, sometimes they'll even have you sign things just to get your car fixed, and you may not realize that you're actually signing away all of your rights, including your bodily injury rights.
This is a particularly bad one. So just to elaborate on that, if people don't understand, what will happen is, as you know, is your car is messed up, it's wrecked. What they'll do is they'll just send you a check out of nowhere. You won't even know it's coming. You haven't spoken to anyone, for $3,600 to repair the property damage. You don't know how much it will cost. You haven't even gotten an estimate yet. And what you won't know, because your instinct is to cash it to get your car fixed. You don't know any better than the layperson. Most people haven't been involved in these. Yeah, and what will happen is on the back, there'll be some language saying, like, full and final payment for property damage. So as soon as you cash that check is actually also a contract where you're releasing them for liability.
Say property damage. Sometimes it just says full and final settlement of all claims.
That's exactly right.
I mean, unfortunately, we've seen that exact situation here where someone will receive a check. It'll seem like a fair amount for their car, so they'll go ahead and cash it. not realizing that there's fine print on that check that says full and final release of all claims.
Yeah.
Right.
So then they're hurt, a couple weeks later or a month later, and they call us, and the insurance company waves this check that they cashed around and say, nope, sorry, too late.
That happened on 2 cases yesterday that we saw. But you know what else? Sometimes they will have them sign a release, but the release is kind of a global release.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just release that particular defendant and that particular insurance company, but it may also release all of the other parties that might have been responsible. So you might have an accident that's actually caused by 2 different parties. And you think, well, all right, I'm going to settle with the one, and then I'm going to settle with the other for their part in it. But the one that you settled with the first one, they threw all this language in the release. You weren't even negotiating with the other insurance company, but it's a global release and it includes everybody.
That's a good point. We've seen that a lot, where someone may think, well, they're telling me they only have this much insurance, so I'll just go ahead and settle with them. Maybe I have my own underinsured coverage, and they've then signed away their rights even to their own insurance coverage because that release includes all claims for that crash.
And I think people have a hard time believing that.
Yes,
when you explain that to people,
it shouldn't.
Listen, I still can't understand completely how they can possibly get by with that, but they can and they do.
I know our legislature is trying really hard to make things even more difficult for victims and easier for companies to get off the hook and not have to pay for the things they've caused. But quite frankly, what they should be doing is saying, if you're settling with somebody, you only have the right to ask them to release the claims against you because you're the one paying that money. You should have no right to be able to negotiate on everybody else's behalf and release those claims when those companies have not put any money toward that release.
Right.
And what it does is make a claim even harder. So then not only do you have to fight for the compensation you deserve because you're hurt, the first thing you have to fight is to get this release set aside. And that can take a long time and be a costly endeavor.
It isn't always successful.
Right, and a lot of firms won't even take those because they know that to get just the regular recovery, it's going to take 10 times as long. Let me ask you this, because you brought this up earlier. Let's say the insurance company seems like they have been fair. They didn't take a recorded statement. They maybe took a statement but not recorded. They pay for the property damage. They know they're going to have to pay on a medical claim. They know the person was hurt. Talk about the trick they pull when they have you sign a medical release and then what they do with that release.
So I would say this is the number one thing we see, actually.
Yeah.
So what they do is they may seem like they're being very magnanimous with you and we just want to help, give us a release or give us some prior medical records. But what they're actually doing is looking for something in your medical history where they can point to later when you're like, oh, my back really hurts now. They're like, well, actually, we see, a year ago you pulled your back and we think this is because of that injury a year ago, so we're not going to compensate you for that. So it seems like they're being helpful and it seems like they're trying to just help you put this behind you, but really what they're doing is just looking for anything they can use against you.
Well, I would say a good rule of thumb is if they're asking you for something, information, 100% of the time, it is for their benefit in an effort to pay you less. I would say 0% of the time will it ever benefit you. It's like the recorded statement.
Right.
When you do this stuff or talk to them about anything other than your property damage and how to get your car fixed, don't tell them what your injuries are, how the accident happened. They know what that is, and it's unrelated to your property damage. Anytime you go beyond that, it is never going to help you, and it commonly can hurt you.
It can, and that's why you want to have a lawyer get involved early. Because the earlier they get involved, the more they can protect you from all of those little tricks. And with medical releases, my advice would be never sign a medical release directly for the insurance company. If you hire a lawyer, your lawyer is going to have medical releases that they use and get only your relevant records. But if you're not going to listen to me and you're still going to sign one, at least modify the agreement so that it only allows them to get records from the date of the accident going forward. Do not sign a release that allows them to get any medical record from before the date of the accident. It's simply not relevant at that time.
And I would take it even further than that. I would, if you are going to sign a release, which, I would suggest you not do that.
Right.
But if you are, I would definitely say not only from the date of the crash going forward, but from limited to that part of the body that you hurt. Like, they have no business getting, if you go to the doctor because you had the flu last week, they're not entitled to those
Right.
records
Right.
at all.
Keep
And
it
they'll
to the
take
part of
things
the body.
that are totally unrelated.
Absolutely.
And let's say, your arm is hurting or your back's hurting, and last year you hurt your hip. They'll try to make an argument that, well, it's probably because you were compensating, your body was compensating
Yeah.
for the hip injury, and that's how you threw your back out. I mean, I think people would, and we see this with our clients, they're blown away and stunned by some of the arguments that insurance companies make. And I think because most people don't encounter this, they would be blown away if you sat them down and talked about all the little dirty tricks in their bag.
Well,
what else do they have in their
you know
bag?
you know what I used to tell clients that would call up, or prospects that would call up? I would say people make the mistake of thinking that an insurance adjuster is like the umpire on a baseball field.
Right.
They're the ones making sure the rules are being followed. They are not the umpire. They are the other team in the other dugout, and they are there to beat you. Do not treat them like they're this fair umpire who's just making sure that the rules are being followed. That is the relationship. And
Right.
once people really understand that, then they understand, okay, that's the relationship here. Even if it's your own insurance company, if you're asking an insurance company to pay money, they are the other team. Period.
Yeah, their goal is to save
Yeah.
money. I mean, that is what they're there to do. So if they can get someone to settle for pennies on the dollar for what they would have been owed 6 months from then after they got a full course of treatment and everything they needed, of course they want to do that.
Well-
that's the goal, is for them to save money. They're a company.
One thing on the same kind of issue, you bring up, it's your own insurance company. I think oftentimes you'll hear people say, no. I've been with this insurance company since I was 16 years old. They're going to take good care of me. They don't care. I think people, because to us, there's a human element anytime you're dealing with somebody else, but the reality is you're a number. And they don't know if you've been with them since you were 16. What they know
They don't look
is
at that.
whether or not you paid your premium last month and the policy is in effect. And they don't know, they don't care. You're a number to them, you're a bottom line to you. You're a bottom line to them, and we often find people who have to go to trial against their own insurance company because they don't treat you any differently, whether it's your insurance company or somebody else's.
It's math.
There's literally,
It's a simple business.
Right.
They collect all of the money,
right.
and then it's basically any money that you don't have to pay back, you get to keep.
Right. Doesn't
That's
change the
it.
algorithm in their
Right. I mean,
calculator,
it's
whether or
just
not you're
this is the
a client of
simplest thing in the world. A child, you could give money to a child and say, here's $100, but you've got to fix all of these things using that money.
Right.
Even a child would have that instinct to say, well, and if I don't have to fix those, I get to keep the 100. Yeah, they're not going to fix anything.
Right.
They're going to keep the 100.
Right.
So that's insurance.
And I always tell people, if you were with somebody from the time you were 16, the same insurance company, and you let your policy lapse for just 2 days,
An hour.
and you got in a car crash in that hour, they're not going to be like, oh, we'll give them a pass because
Not a
they've
chance.
been. No, absolutely not. I mean, they're a business and they're there to make money.
We have anything else in their bag of tricks that we want to discuss today?
I mean, a couple of things that I would say we commonly see. Another one is not telling you about other policies that may be available that you may be able to take advantage of, and just acting like, there's just this one policy and kind of negotiating around that one policy.
Well, right. There could be somebody else in the household whose policy
Or
can
there
be
could be an
stacked
umbrella.
on top, or
Exactly.
an umbrella. And what they'll do, they won't tell you about it, and they will have you sign a release, and then there's nothing you can do. I think going back to your point, I mean, remember, this is an insurance company. There's an insurance adjuster. She's either directly being, or he or she is either directly being advised by a legal department, or the legal department has given them sort of overriding
Guidelines.
principles and guidelines. And so what you're looking at is you have this billion-dollar corporation, they have a lawyer, and you're just a layperson with often no legal background. It's not a fair fight. You can't win.
No, I agree, and that's why it's always better just to be safe, than sorry, and give us a call, and at the very least, let us take a look at what they're trying to do,
Right.
and if we don't think we can do any better for you, we'll tell you that too.
Well,
Right.
remember, it's a free consultation. It costs you nothing
Right.
to call in a lawyer who handles these types of cases. And I think time is always your biggest enemy. And I don't think people realize that not only are there things that need to be done very quickly after an accident, there are also things that need not to be done after an accident.
The recorded statement. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I'm sure we can probably talk about all the tricks that they pull for hours. but I'm guessing that our viewers have probably heard enough. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and remember to subscribe to this, and we'll do a new segment every week. And if you have a topic that you'd like us to talk about, just put it in the comments.